This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Every year around this time period, it seems September, October, November, a lot of these YouTubers, a lot of people who claim to be prophets, a lot of people who claim to have visions, come out with these videos and they date pick and they say that the end of the world is near. And I've noticed that there's a rash of this picking up, and I call it a rash because that's really what it's like. It's like one of those rashes that you need to get preparation H for. Or even a rash that just won't go away, because time and time again we're hearing Christians who are into date setting, despite the Bible telling us that none of us know the day or the hour. Yet many media outlets, again, are reporting that the end of the world is near, and Bible scholars believe this freaky trio of signs proves it. Now, I wouldn't argue that we are living in the end times period, but that's just my interpretation from everything I'm seeing. But the end time period could be hundreds of years from now. Could be 1,000 of years. I have no idea. I am not a prophet. Okay, I'm just a guy who, I put stuff together. I try to piece things together, see the repetition and the stuff, how it plays out. But when it comes to the end of the world and saying, this stuff, I know sometimes I'll do a video and I'll say, the end is near because, you got trannies in school and all this kind of stuff because it makes your head explode. But literally saying it as far as Bible prophecy being fulfilled is just a common thing on YouTube that really bothers me. And it should bother a lot of Christians out there because it really creates an insane type of fear in people's minds and a depression in people's minds. There's people who sell their homes. There's people who get rid of their pets that think the world's going to be ending tomorrow or they're going to be getting raptured. Okay? And now these articles that have come out in the last couple days are saying that 3 unusual and freaky signs have emerged in the past few months, which have convinced some that the biblical prophecies about the end of the world and the second coming of Christ are only a stone's throw away. Now, again, I'm not saying, it could be any time now, but I think there's a lot of things that still have to happen before that does go on. But I, as much as anyone else, am looking forward to the day of the second coming of Christ. But I don't think anybody out there should be saying that they know or they're having visions. And yes, I believe that prophets existed and prophets probably still exist, but I don't believe that I think a lot of these people on YouTube have proved that they're not prophets at this point because every time they're wrong, they just move on into another video about this stuff, and then people just forget that they had already said that this was going to happen last year on the same date or 6 months prior or this or that, or they pick Feasts of the Tabernacles and they say that that's going to be the end. Okay, it says, since time began, people have been obsessed with the end of the world. Over the many-year predictions concerning the apocalypse have fallen flat on their face as the world wakes up, yawns, stretches, and goes about their business of yet another day. And remember, this is just another way that the media can make us all look crazy by finding people who are constantly doing these types of, predictions and things like that. And then, desensitizing people to the actual severity of, the end times and the trumpet sounding. Okay, we do see predictive programming all over the place. I've covered all the predictive programming with aliens and demonic possession and all that stuff that they're constantly using repetition with witches as well. The apocalypse is another one. The end of the world is another one that we always are seeing movies themed around the end of the world and Armageddon, from shows like The Last Man Standing, Last Person on Earth, those types of movies and TV shows, to American Horror Story, actually having the end of the world and the Antichrist, the rise of the Antichrist as the theme. Okay, and they've been using predictive programming for quite some time now. But it says, however, more and more people are convinced the end times will actually begin in 2021. And the Mirror, this is the Mirror, which it can't be taken too credible, but there's a bunch of media outlets that are talking about the same story. They're reporting they believe the following signs prove it. First up, where we have the recent birth of the red heifer in Israel. Holy cow, you might cry. What's so shocking about the birth of the red heifer? Well, red heifers have been a regular feature in end times predictions since the dawn of creation. Apparently, the red calf brings the promise of reinstating biblical purity to the world. It is said before the construction of a third temple in Jerusalem can take place, a red cow should be born and then sacrificed. Mainstream Judaism states that because the 2 previous temples have been destroyed, a third one will need to be built before the coming of the Jewish Messiah. Some theologians believe the building of the third temple also foreshadows Judgment Day or Armageddon. Israel News, which the title, it speaks for itself, right? Reports that a board of rabbis has said that heifer is red without blemish and as such fulfills the requirement of the prophecy. I covered the red heifer articles that were out there. I believe it was last month. And then second up, we have fish spotted in the Dead Sea. What's so unusual about fish swimming in the sea, you ask? It's what they do best, after all. Here's the rub. The Dead Sea's high salinity makes it notoriously no good for fish and other marine life. Hence how the Dead Sea got its rather unattractive name. Yet scientists claim that fish have been found in abundance in the Dead Sea's sinkholes. Then others are claiming that the body of water is anything but dead in the Dead Sea and claimed it was the eighth wonder of the world. Rabbis who, take it with a grain of salt. A place that was once cursed in biblical times, now you can come to the Red Sea, explore the sinkholes, and see fish where the water has receded, fulfilling prophecies from Ezekiel, who talked about the land flourishing and blooming when the Jews return. Ezekiel is a priest and a prophet who appears in the Old Testament and predicted the Dead Sea will flourish into life during the end times. According to Ezekiel chapter 47, verses 8 through 9, there shall be a very great multitude of fish. And then thirdly, we have the return of the serpent, a slithering snake which was spotted crawling out of the stones of Israel's western wall last week, interrupted prayers and unsettled many worshipers. Well, we see the rise of the serpent all over the place. If we turn on YouTube, music video on YouTube, you'll see a serpent, crawling out of some musician's rear end, from Taylor Swift down the list. The appearance of a reptile emerging from one of Judaism's holiest sites has led to many theorists making wild leaps of faith and drawing parallels with the serpent that tempted Adam and Eve in the garden. According to other news sites, the snake probably escaped its hiding place in an attempt to fatten itself up for the winter months. Others claim it is a sure sign that the earth is going to hell in a handcart. So, you can see the narrative and kind of how they say it about, hell in a handcart. They want to make it seem like crazy Christians are saying the world's going to end and everyone's going to die. And I always find these articles interesting when they talk about or when any of these people do videos talking about the end of the world, because they could take certain verses like Ezekiel and they can say, look, we can make comparisons to what's going on in the Dead Sea and things like that. But nobody ever says Matthew chapter 4, verse 36. No one knows the day or the hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. So nobody knows the day or the hour, but they do love to release these types of stories, obviously you have breaking Israel news, you have the Express, you have the Inquisitor, you have the Mirror. These aren't credible, the Sun. These are not credible sources. What is credible, right, out of these mainstream publications? But remember, when you see the repetition, a lot of this stuff, are they trying to create fear? Yes. Are they trying to make people desensitized to the actual end of the world occurring? Yes, they are. So you could see things that match up. Of course, you could see the signs, right? We all are going to see the signs and the things that are going on around us. And you could also see the predictive programming through the television and the movies, right? That's one of the only reasons to even keep an eye on that type of stuff, is because they're telling you, because that's how their sigil, disgusting, lame black magic works. They're constantly showing, they're constantly revealing, they're constantly telling. And that's why American Horror Story is focused around the rise of the Antichrist, the rise of the witch, and the apocalypse. That's the exact reason for it. That does not mean, though, that it is today. That does not mean that it is tomorrow. That does not mean it's 100 years from now. Because, like I said, Matthew chapter 24, verse 36, let's all say it together. No one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. So if you're a teen out there, if you're someone who's new to the channel, and you start watching, videos like mine, and then it leads to other channels, because that's really how it always works, Everybody kind of watches a lot of different channels that are in the same type of genre. But be careful of people who claim that, be prophets and have prophetic visions and all this stuff, because a lot of these same people have been doing this for, making those types of predictions for a long time. And then once it doesn't happen, they continue just going along about it. They don't retire. They don't go away. And then new people find their channel, and they have no idea that, 2 years ago on the same date, that the same people said that the rapture was going to occur or the end times were going to occur, right? Because they're new to it. They're not going through the history of the videos, from 2-3 years ago or even a year ago. So it's important, I think, whenever, these types of stories come out, I always like to point it out to people, just so they don't go in, teens and young kids especially don't go into panic or fear and think that this stuff's going to happen. And then they find YouTubers who keep posting these videos that get a lot of views about the world ending and then saying they have prophetic visions and then, using all types of things to, piece it together and tell people to be prepared and the day is tomorrow. And then when it's not tomorrow, the day is next week. And then when it's not next week, the day is next month. And when it's not next month, the day is next year. And it goes on and on and on and on. Just be ready for the coming of the King. Just be ready is all I tell people. Be prepared and live your life, and preparing for those things and be right with God. But don't live in fear thinking that these people are, suddenly a YouTuber who's living in his, living in a studio apartment in Hollywood suddenly has a prophetic vision. He might have just had an overdose or something. All right? But that doesn't mean to not look at some of the signs and the things going on around us, because we are supposed to look at these things. But just let's not jump to conclusions and try to predict days and hours like, the article saying, well, now experts say 2020 and 2021. I mean, the same experts who were saying this, making all types of predictions that still haven't come true. So I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.